It runs like a dream. I'm telling you what, this thing has more power probably than it has had in years, if not months, if not days. Well, jeepers creepers, what do we have here? In the shop today, we've got what's reported to be an 88 Jeep Wrangler. It's the Sahara model. So if you have the square headlights, rectangles, actually is what they are, guys and gals, but this is the 87 to 95-ish Jeep model, the YJs, if you're into that kind of thing. And this one, like I said, it's a Sahara. So if you have this and it's the stock Sahara package, you know you're getting the 6-cylinder, first of all. And this one at one point had air conditioning, and it does have the power steers and the power make it stoppers. It's got some leather seats swapped in. Otherwise, fairly, you know, basic. We do have, oh, it's automatic transmission. We've got the transfer case shifter, and then if you look down here, there's a choke cable that has been adapted to actuate the front axle to actually lock in the four-wheel drive. From the factory, they were vacuum, and someone has changed that to a mechanical connection, which is all good. Otherwise, I think we're pretty stock. We've got the Dana 30 front. What do we got back here? Do we have a 44? Oh, looks like a 35 rear. Got some 35s. Looks like about 4 inches of lift spring and then about 3 inches of body. So yeah, it's a beat around. River rig is what we use them for here, and taking the top off and cruising down the country roads in the summer times. So why is it here? A couple things. It's not running worth a crud. It runs and it drives, but not worth a crud. And then also the other complaint is that the belt squeals really bad, which I have observed. Well, first thing we see is, looks pretty aligned right here. And then we come down here and this alternator is cockeyed. It ain't straight with everything else. And on top of that, the owner went and tried to do a little bit of his own tune-up. He's going to put plugs and wires on it. Well, you have a really hard time getting number one out down here because of this air conditioning compressor. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete the air conditioning compressor out of the equation totally, and then shorten the belt. Now you can get bracketries and an idler pulley to take the place of the air conditioning pulley. However, we're going to get our handy dandy straight edge out. And the other thing we might be able to do, and what we're going to try first is, this is just happens to be just the right size. If you lay that down across just the alternator over to the power steering and not go up here, it doesn't look like it's going to interfere with anything. So maybe this hose clamp right here. So we're going to take this off. We're going to figure out what's going on with the mounting of the alternator, and then we're going to measure for a shorter belt and probably save this customer some money buying that fancy adapter pulley. The other complaint has to do with air and fuel and timing, most likely, but it just doesn't run real great down the road. The idle is a little bad pulling in here, and so we're looking here. We've lost, it's gone, the factory vacuum, you know, spaghetti vacuum carburetor Carter, I believe is what it should have been, 2-barrel, and somebody has swapped on. It wasn't this customer, it was somebody prior to him. They swapped on what looks like a Ford or Holley Chinesium knockoff 2-barrel here. the air filter's really dirty, so we'll remedy that. And then we'll give it a once over and figure out why we're not running great. One thing, if you look real close, what do you see here? We see this like lawnmower vacuum line, fuel line going from ported vacuum to the EGR. If we're gonna go ahead and swap carburetors and do all this magical stuff in the first place, I'm not sure why we feel this needs to be here. But what we also see is a vacuum line here that's off of manifold vacuum, and it's coming over and going to the distributor. Now what this distributor would rather see is ported vacuum. This actually should be plugged in here. And what the difference is manifold vacuum creates a vacuum when the plates in the carburetor are closed. That's how a vacuum is created here, because there's a lot of air outside and less air inside, and the outside air can't get in, so that creates a vacuum inside your engine. Now, ported vacuum is on the top side of those throttle plates. So when the throttle plates are closed, it's atmospheric pressure, not very much vacuum at all. Right in here basically is what we're talking. You get vacuum on ported vacuum when the throttle plates open and air starts to rush through. That creates the vacuum here. So bottom line is we're kind of doing things backwards. Where our distributor wants to see vacuum is under acceleration, and the vacuum advance is how that works, is when it sees that vacuum here under acceleration, it'll advance the timing and help the thing run better. But what we're doing is we're giving it full vacuum at idle here, which is probably knocking our timing out of whack. And then when we step on it, this vacuum is dropping off because we've equalized that pressure and we're retarding under acceleration, more than likely. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of tidy things up. We're going to set our idle air mixture screws, and we're going to make sure that the vacuum sources are correct and vacuum lines are correct, and then we'll dial this in. Oh, and check timing, because somebody probably had to jack that around to get it to run good. So those are the two things: squealy belt, poor running carburetor, and fuel system. Oh, and then this getting this number one plug and plug wire swapped out. Shouldn't be a big deal. One quick video for you here, and we'll get this thing running good, being happy, and ready for summertime. Oh, one more thing. You know, this is my pet peeve. We're gonna fix this too, because that's gross. Well, right off the get here, we're missing hardware. We're missing one of the nuts on the back of the power steering pump. We're missing the lower bolt down here that goes into the water pump for the power steering pump. The ear is there, so I don't know why we don't have a bolt. And then it looks like, yes, the bolt for the tensioner here underneath the air conditioning compressor, I can see it's broke off in that ear. So great. We're gonna loosen this up. Oh, and we're missing a bolt on the back for the pivot of the air conditioning compressor. Golly, what else might we be missing? We've got the wrong bolt holding the back alternator bracket, and yeah, I have a feeling we've got the wrong alternator on here, maybe. Period. So, anywho, let's get it torn apart and we'll get it fixed up. I think this alternator is supposed to be our tensioner as well. Okay, guys, loose. And you're going to have a mixture of metrics and standards probably. So that's not a 9, got to get 15. There we go. Taking this battery positive battery post off now, because we're going to clean it up, put a new end on it anyway. But we don't want to sparky anything at the back of this alternator accidentally either. Do not believe that is the correct hardware assortment for holding the back of the alternator on. Yeah, all right, let's get it off here and see what's going on. Well, this is kind of a pain in the rear end. Some sort of bracketry just fell on the floor. There. That is not factory. That looks like a factory part. Okay, let's lift this guy out. Let's see what's going on here. It won't be too bad. We have a bolt right down here somewhere that I can't quite see. Oh, okay, it goes that way. Oh. Oh, no, 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 yeah, no, yeah, yeah, uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's out of the way. And that bolt we should not need anymore. So now what we can do is this top plate, no, it needs to be there. This back bracket looks factory. We might be missing a spacer or something to attach the back of that alternator. Yeah, we can't lose this guy. Here's where our broken bolt is for our adjuster. So let's take this piece out so we can extract that bolt. Great. Looks like a whole bunch of 15s. There we go. Come with me. There's our broken bolt. Let's get that out of there. Looks like somebody kind of sort of tried on it. We should be able to get it without too much trouble though. And then, yeah, it's just a matter of going back together and figuring out what's different and why that alternator isn't happy in that spot. Well, we weren't able to extract it, so we had to drill it all the way out. We tapped it 8 by 125. This whole bracketry is metric anyway, so we tapped that 8 by 125 and we found a bolt in the bolt drawer that fits right in there. So let's throw this back on. I do not think this is some sort of a fabric-cobbled other bracket. This got to be factory. So let's throw this back on and then figure out exactly how that alternator is supposed to attach. This bracket here, this bracketry, there's supposed to be a spacer here because this whole bracketry pivots at this point. This pivots one way, this pivots the other way to tighten and loosen the belt. And it can't pivot if it's sucked down onto this ear, which it was, because then it runs into the timing cover here. So we came up with a jam nut that does the work of whatever spacer is missing, and we flatten this steel out in the vise. And so now we're good there. We got our pivot bolt in. It's the correct length. This is the hole we tapped, and we've got our 8mm bolt in there. So we're ready to throw the alternator in there. It'll attach here with the big ear and up here with the small ear, and then we're going to have to figure out what's going on with this back, because it was caved in back here as well. Okay, if you're going to do this on a serpentine belt, make sure that you're in the same or about the same groove all the way around. So this is what we're going to look like our belt wise, and I don't think we're going to hit anything or have any obstructions. So we've taken this little piece of rope, wrapped it around the routing of the belt, and then we mark the end. We'll lay it out straight, measure it, call up the Irish parts store, and see if they can find us something that is close. The other thing is we have our alternator crammed all the way at its closest position. So if we can find a belt that's probably about 1/4 to 1/2 inch longer, that'll be ideal, and it'll give us some space to adjustimate. Next day alert. Progress has been made, dudes and dudettes. We got us a belt that is AC delete, but without having to spend money on an extra little bracketry and pulley here. The magic number, put this in your brain, 71 1/16 inches long. Let's get you a part number. They didn't have the Gates belt, but we do have the Irish Master Pro number. There it is, K060705 71 1/8 6 rib, so 13/16 wide. But yeah, it is happy. We had to do some shimming on that bottom bracket. There was a shim missing and the bracket was bent, and we're gonna let it ride like that. But yeah, it comes right across, get you a better angle on that belt, right like that. We're golden. It doesn't hit nothing, and comes right across under the thermostat over the power steering. Life is good. Now we also fiddled just a tickle bit with the old drivability issue that we have here. All we did was we went ahead, I showed you this vacuum line that went to manifold vacuum down here, and it goes to the distributor. We unplugged that, and then we took off the dirty air filter. We also cleaned the timing marks down there on the indicator on the crank. So what we're going to do is, with no advance, no vacuum signal to the timing whatsoever, we're going to fire this thing up. It does idle already just a little bit better. Oh, and then we're going to go ahead and turn our idle mixture screws all the way in and get them backed out 1.5 turns. So we've got a good base to start tinkering here. But yeah, we'll get it started up. We'll get it to idle a little bit, as much as we can, and then we're going to check base timing. Doesn't want to idle. Both screws were out a little more than I'd like. And I'm going to have to hold it here to get timing. Alright, about 11. And we're not at idle. So, I don't think anybody screwed with base timing at all. We'll go ahead and let this shut off. And yeah, so base timing, and 11's close enough. Factory spec by the sticker is 9. So let's now, we're gonna take this little vacuum hose off of the EGR valve here, and we're going to bring up our hose for the distributor and plug it into ported vacuum. See if that helps us out. got better throttle response, but it still doesn't want to idle at all. Okay, so I kind of second triple guessed myself. Before we condemn this carburetor, as much as I'd like to condemn it, we fiddled some more, because once we got the right vacuum source to the distributor, we had good acceleration. Before, it would bog. If you gave it gas, it would just slowly bog down on itself. Well, that's because it wasn't getting any advance. Well, now we've got advance, and the acceleration was great, but it just wouldn't idle. And so we backed out a turn or two on the idle screws, and now it's idling pretty darn good, guys and gals. The thing that makes me leery about it is we're about 4 1/4 turns out on each side. We do them the same, you know the rules, but it's a little concerning. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to set you on the fender. We've got the old vacuum gauge hooked up. We're going to start it. We're going to set this kind of ignoring. We're going to keep them the same, but we're going to get as much vacuum out of this as we can and set the idle that way. And then we're going to drive it and put a few miles on it and go from there. Now, you guys watch. You'll see me fiddling around behind here. The idle air mixture screws are down under here. But down here in the red, you got, 10, 20. These are your vacuums, down here. So the needle should drop, and we're looking for, we want to get the most out of it that we can. Maximum vacuum at idle, and then drive it. Here we go. Should start right up though. A lot better than it was. Yeah, we got good vacuum. We're all the way over here, guys and gals, at about the 18 mark. Pretty decent for this old girl. We can get a little more here. Let's screw this in until we start to see a drop. And just a little bit of a drop there. Come back out of here. That gets us right at about 19. But I mean, here's why I don't want to dig into this carb. She's running pretty darn nice. Let's try the old shut off hot start. Yeah, guys and gals, we're going to go drive this and see what's going on. I think we might just be happy. I had better get you dudes and dudettes updated. We're back together. So what we ended up doing, we got an alternator from Irish, and the shaft was bent. The serpentine belt pulley wobbled a little bit, and then you turned it, and the old one sounded like gravel, and the new one sounded marginally better. So we ended up scrapping that idea, went to the Napa Valley, and for about $15 more got the Napa Valley kind of alternator, and it's much better, quieter, and the case was clocked correctly. So we've got this back bracket bolt in there. Everything's a hundo on it. The belt is lined up very nicely. We're still on the same belt, tensioned. Everything's happy there. Now on our carburetor, we did get our replacement air filter, and before we started condemning this carburetor too much, Wanted to drive it with that on and see if that helped that stumble. It did not. If you just stop and sit at like a stop sign or something and let it idle for any reason for a little bit, and then you jump on the gas pretty hard, it falls on its face, then jumps back up. If you do it too hard, it'll fall on its face and die. Otherwise, what we're gonna do, we do have that stumble. We're gonna take this out, and sometimes the idle is also just a little uneven. So we're gonna take this carburetor off, take it apart, and at the very least, clean it up. And see if we can't get this thing where it's within the spec we want for adjustments, and where we'll get rid of that stumble. Now, I think I'd have to go back in editing, I'll know for sure, but I think I've been calling this a Holley knockoff 2-barrel. Probably not. What this is more a knockoff of is the Ford Motorcraft MC2100, which is a very popular swap, and that is what I have on the Laredo. Let's get this popped off and onto the carb mat. We'll get it cleaned up a little bit, take it apart, break it down. Hopefully we can get it apart and cleaned up and put back together without putting a whole kit in it, because again, I think it could be a little difficult to find the correct kit for this Chinesium carb. All right, we're on the bench. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to call this a MC2100. Comes apart pretty easily. These come apart pretty easily, and one of the nice things about these is you can take this top cover off and adjust the float in the bowl, on the bowl and stuff, with the engine running and the top cover not even on the carburetor. You just take this little screw off for the butterfly right over here, and then you can take that sucker right off of there. These carburetors are real popular, or were real popular with Jeepers in the CJ and the YJ days. You can break them down pretty thoroughly on the trail if you needed to. And you can set the float just a little bit low and really get some good angles. I mean, this carburetor will work at, well, the Motorcraft version of this carburetor will work at some pretty extreme angles. And that's beneficial when you're out there crawling around the rocks and trails and stuff. And then from here, this is what I'm talking about. You can get it to here on the vehicle and run it like this, and monitor and adjust this float as necessary. But down in there, we don't see a lot of gunk and stuff. We're going to take the venturis out now, and the passages that we're really eager to kind of clean up are here within the venturi assembly, and the dispersion tubes, I think is what, I don't know what they're called, down in there. And then we'll go ahead and take accelerator pump off here and the power valve down here, and, you know, give everything a good cleaning. Oh, that's bright. Well, it's taking a little longer, guys and dudettes, but we're making progress. I think we're about got it. So, and I'm going to show you, we're going to run this thing with the top right off of it. There was an issue. This customer did not put this carburetor on. This customer bought this Jeep with this carburetor installed. It probably has, I know it's never run right. It's never, the idle was never set right. It didn't pull itself down the road. It had a stumble, it had a bog. And I think in order to correct some of those drivability issues, they had, and we'll adjust this maybe, but the accelerator pump linkage was all the way at the top hole. So we were leaning on the accelerator pump at idle. the idle air mixture screws were out 4 turns, and we couldn't get it to run if we ran them in at all. So, you know, it is what it is. But finally what we did was we came over here and we got it to run with the top off. You can wash your fuel pump fuel into the bowl, but more importantly, what we were able to do is we were able to verify and watch these 2 nozzles and make sure that our accelerator pump was functioning properly. But then we noticed the venturis were acting up. This one was nice and clear, atomizing fuel like it was supposed to. This one, however, at anything above idle, was dripping fuel. So we had either side of the carburetor acting completely differently than the other. I want to start this up though and show you this running. It is kind of cool, and it should pop right off idle and be pretty happy. Oh, so if you didn't believe me, now you probably should. Got fuel coming in. Watch your watch the spurters there. And make sure they're working. More importantly, you don't see a bunch of fuel just dripping down in there. We're gonna go ahead and throw the top back on this carburetor, button things up. It's getting a little late this evening, but in the morning we'll make some final adjustments on the idle air, go for a little road test, make sure our accelerator pump linkage is happy where it's at, and then this thing is buttoned up and it's a win. There we go. Oh, I threw some mud on the hood. A little bit of a stumble still. Hey, want to say hi to all the internet humans and doggos? Thanks for watching. Let's update you again on the '88 Wrangler. And guys and gals and dudes and dudettes, when you're jumping into this hobby that involves, you know, stuff and older things and modifying and making it yours, you just gotta kind of know that you're gonna run into some, they call them pitfalls, money pits, just issues. So not the fault of the owner of this Jeep. He bought it this way, and really not the fault of the person who did this. They went and tried to do it the affordable way, and we're still stuck on this Chinesium wannabe Ford Motorcraft 2-barrel, and it finally got to the point, and I'm going to show you in here. See, I'm going to get a pointer. Hang on. It just, fuel delivery was all over the place on this thing, and I couldn't figure out. You could see, especially on this side, in the driver's side venturi tube and barrel of the carburetor, it would just freak out once in a while and just start dribbling fuel all over the place. Well, we took it all apart, and the bottom half of the venturis were more loose fitting than we'd like them to be. So we cleaned it all up, put everything back together, and started running it again, and noticed that if you look right here, there's a gap. All right, that is the bottom piece of that venturi falling out, coming apart. And then look down here. Luckily, guys and gals, we were doing this in the driveway, trying to fiddle with this a little bit. See this piece down here? it fell out of the bottom of that Venturi. The only thing, well, I think it might be too big to sneak past the throttle plates, but otherwise, yeah. And we found some other issues on the tops of the Venturi. There are some soft plugs from when they originally assembled. Those are loose. It's just this guy right here, this Chinesium wannabe 2-barrel ain't gonna be happy. So we had to have one of those conversations with the customer, and it's not all bad news, because other than that, we're kind of ready to rock, because we have the correct adapter plate. And I think I might have already said this, but we have the correct adapter plate. Linkages are there. It's minimal hookups. We just got to find a good carburetor. And lo and behold, just today we found one. And we got a kit coming for it, because I know what kit to order, because I got the same dang thing on my Jeep. But we were at another little honey hole this morning, and it doesn't look like much right now, but there's our Motorcraft, Ford makes them, 2-barrel. Looks pretty similar, except for it's much better. Now, looking for these, if you want to do this, this is an excellent way to upgrade the fuel system in your CJ, your non-injected YJ with the 258 4.2 liter. Mr. Gasket makes a small 2-barrel to large 2-barrel adapter. Other than that, all you need is throttle linkages, fuel line, vacuum for your vacuum advance, and yeah, you're off to the races. And we have most of that stuff. The big thing though is, when you're searching for one of these, on the side of the bowl casting, I don't know how to even make this here. On the side of the bowl casting right here, there's a circular pattern in the casting, and inside of that circle there's a number. There's a 3-digit number, and what you're looking for is a 108. That means this carburetor came off of a 302 V8, a small displacement V8, and the 258s really enjoy the 108 Venturis. That's the size of the Venturis. They make a 121 and the bigger, like the 351 engines of the same era. We're talking early 70s to mid 80s, or early 80s maybe. The 351s also had a Motorcraft 2100 or 2150, but they had a 121 stamp here, which means bigger jets, bigger Venturis, and they will overfuel your little 258.6. These things, this one though, the 108, is exactly what we need. And because I don't often throw stuff away, you can see on my kit here, MC 2100 Ford Jeep. So we looked that up at the Irish Parts Store website, 15890. We got one of them. It'll be here tomorrow. So we're going to disassemble this today, get it in the carb cleaner, get it soaking. It's free, which means it wasn't free, but the linkage is free. Everything looks like it's going to work just fine. We're going to blow it apart, get it all cleaned up. Then tomorrow morning, we'll kit it, get it on the Jeep, and hopefully by about noon, have this problem licked. Next day alert. We are all cleaned up. Our carb kit, the Irish store, it's not here first thing in the morning, so we're waiting a little bit. But in the meantime, we got to figure out some linkages. Now, originally I thought on my Jeep, I just moved on the Jeeps, the cable pulls down on these carburetors, on the factory carburetor. Well, on mine, I just moved the bracketry so it would pull back, like on here, it pulled straight back. However, this is an automatic Jeep, so it's got the kickdown linkages and stuff that also have to work. So we have to retain that pulling down. Now, I don't know if this was part of the Chinesium kit, but somebody previous to this owner really didn't do excuse me, really didn't do a bad job of figuring this out with some, looks like some, you know, Home Depot bracketry, a T-bracket, and then another little ball nubbin right here. This part of this Chinesium mess is probably the silver lining, and the one thing that was really decent. Now what we need to do is we need to figure out how to make this work on this type of setup. And I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna just keep their bracketries, and we're gonna take this nubbin out of here. We'll put a bolt through there and catch one of these holes here, and then we'll space that out with a longer machine screw is what I should have said. And then we're going to come down here, we're going to try to catch this hole in this linkage. Now these normally don't rotate together. This was probably some sort of a kick down or something like that off of this whatever car or truck this came off of. But what I think we can do is we can bolt these two together and have them work together just like these two are together. That's my plan. I think it's gonna work. Tippy tap into keyboards, and then you know, keep watching till the end, and we'll see if it actually does work. We got updates. Pulled our little T bracket off of this linkages and put it onto this linkages, so we're pulling down now on this little barbell here. Let's run it out to the Wrangler, and we can just bolt this base right onto the existing gasket and see if it's going to work. Put you guys there again. Are you in the frames? Pretty much. Just grab a couple of these guys. Do the cattywampus holes. Snug that down. Snug that down. Now let's see if our linkage even comes up to it here. Ooh, that's pretty close, you guys. Just gonna snap right on there. Be pretty close to factory. In fact, we come back all the way up to idle here. Well, come on now. Well, come on now. There we go. There's idle. There's full throttle. We're not hitting anything. Boy, I'm really liking it. Let's go try the foot feet. Tell me if it goes the same amount. Floored. Do we got the full throttles? Oh, we're right there. I think what we'll do is, I don't want this to be able to pull apart, so I think we are going to remove this set screw, drill a hole in here, and put a machine screw in here and just permanently attach these two linkages, and that should get us everything we want and need. All right, we got our kit finally. Well, not finally, it came the next day. It was supposed to be there first thing in the morning, but we got it nonetheless. Walker number 15890. You can cross this to a Napa number. I don't know what that is off the top of my brain, but yeah, this Walker one is the one I've done, I don't even know how many times. A lot. So we're going to toss this in quick. You're going to listen to some music, and if we find something cool along the way, we'll share it with you. Well, let's get you caught up to speed. It's all back together. We had a little bit of an interruption from customer, needed some quick little air conditioning work that I don't do much and I'm only semi-professional at. But anywho, that got us sidetracked and we just had to get hunkered down and get some work done. We had a little hiccup though. You know, I gave you this part number 15890. Well, turns out there's a difference in these MC2100/MC2150s. We actually had a, oh, let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, we actually had, first we found it in the power valves. Our power valve looked like this that we took out, and the Chinesium one looked like that. The power valve in the kit looks like this. It's not gonna, the cover is not gonna fit with this tall hat on it. So looked at my Jeep over yonder, and it's got a deeper sump underneath the power valve. Got on the old Napa Valley website and just started searching random 70s Ford V8 applications. Turns out if you search up a 76 Ford Mustang 2 with a 302 V8, you can get a carb kit. Here's the Napa Valley number 2-5714C. And it's got the right size accelerator pump, and it's got the right style power valve. So off to the Napa Valley. Carb kit number 2. They're about $60 a piece nowadays. And by the way, dudes and dudettes, what happened to the $25 to $35 carb kits, for crying out sakes? Oh, anywho, we got her all put back together. Life is good. Let's go out and look at the Jeep here. Storms are coming, so we just had to get some work done, and I apologize. I don't have the step-by-steps for you, but you watched me take the Chinesium one off, so it's the same darn thing. Little differences though. This has on the Fords, they have a screw-in fuel filter at the base of the fuel bowl. So we went ahead and did that. So we're double filtered here. So that's going to be okay. And then we stuck with the let's use corner bracing bracketry for linkages. And we had to make a bracketry for the return spring. And then we'd put just a little bit heavier return spring on it because we're pulling this way instead of, you know, the other way. What else? This adjusted out just fine. A little floppy, but it's fine. It's great. One thing that this carburetor did not have was a giant vacuum outlet on the back side for the PCV breather hose. So this thing, the hose that goes to the vacuum booster, had a butt connector here. So we took that out, put a T in, connected PCV to that. Life is good. Vacuum advance goes to the ported side, just like on the Chinesium. And then we have one plug under here. It runs like a dream. I'm telling you what, this thing has more power probably than it has had in years, if not months, if not days. It's just a good running machine. We'll start it up. We're not going to drive it again. I've already driven it once, ran out of gas, drove it again to make sure it wasn't, you know, something else. But let's start it up here. Pretty hot start. That's how we like it. We're at about 2.5 turns out on the idle screws, so a little more than we normally would be, but it's happy as a clam. Now before, if you got out on the road and you just broke it down to a stop, left it in gear, idled for 30 seconds, and then romped on the gas, it would fall flat on its face. And most of the time it'd just die. But this one, you get her out on the road, stop, let it idle for a little bit like at a stop sign, and then give her heck. I'd be leery of the Dana 35 because there's no hesitation. It just burns off these 35s on a gravel road. Of course, I ain't gonna do it on pavement, but it just boils off those 35s and wants to go have fun. So we're done with that one. Hey, Jeep guys and gals, if you got one of these 88 or newer Wranglers or the CJs with the 4.2 and you want to make them peppier, more reliable and more powerful and all that good stuff, easier to work on, go get you a Motorcraft 2100, 2150. It's got to have that 108 stamping on the side. Thanks for watching this one. Thanks for watching and sharing and liking all our stuff. We'll catch you on the next video.